Dan, this episode, there's just something, I don't know, something special about it. I just can't seem to put my finger on it.
Oh, but yeah, you got that feeling, don't you? There's something in the air. Something with this episode.
There's something's going on. There's something happening here, and what it is ain't exactly clear.
I actually do know what's going on. I don't know if you for sure do, but I do know what's going on with this episode, and it is a big one.
Well, it is why I have you in my life, because I struggle with numbers, and you are my go-to. So maybe you can let me know what I'm feeling here.
Triple digits.
Oh my!
There's your hint. Triple digits.
It's like my gross profit 0.001. There's my 3 digits.
There's no decimal point in this one.
Yeah. Well, if you guys haven't figured it out yet, Dan and I are just the proudest podcasters in the world. Today, this episode is a milestone, man.
Yeah.
And it falls on Valentine's Day, Dan. I think the podcast is after my heart.
Oh my goodness. I didn't even realize that. Now it's like, I don't know, maybe we should publish this on Thursday.
Valentine's Day 2024 is a special day because 100 episodes ago, we posted our very first podcast, and the podcast universe has never been the same since.
It has.
Congratulations. Not. Yeah. Congratulations, Dan. 100 episodes of the Wood Hounds Podcast.
Well, thank you. And congratulations to you as well for making it.
Dan. That was nice of you to say that.
I just didn't realize that this episode would fall on the biggest day for suckers out there. Valentine's Day.
Yeah. So I don't know, Dan. It hasn't really sunk in. 100 episodes. That's a lot, and especially if you think back upon our modest goal that we had set, even before we published our first episode. Do you remember what our goal was? We were going to say, if this is going to be worth our time, we're going to do X number of episodes, and then we will reassess and see if it's actually going to be of any value. Do you remember that number?
I believe it was 4.
Yes, it was 4 episodes. That was the magic number for us, where we felt the money that we spent on these microphones and the effort to get into the podcast, because, opening an account, figuring out how all this works, getting all of our episodes onto all of the major streaming services, that takes work. So Our goal was just to make it to 4 episodes.
And since I am apparently the numbers guy, if I'm crunching these numbers correctly, we have far exceeded our goal.
I'm holding up both hands with my fingers here. We've accomplished, we've made more than this number of episodes. Yeah, we made it to 100, and gosh, that is, when you look back on podcasts, and if you have become a fan of the Wood Hounds Podcast, you've probably stumbled upon other podcasts, and you can just zip down through their episodes, and there's not a lot out there that ever make it to 100 episodes. And certainly that don't have the number of 5-star ratings that we do, and it's just been something special, Dan.
And I think one of the big things is just keeping up that consistency and having. I mean, the other big goal we had was it had to be fun. And for me, I think that, it's been a blast, and it is hard to think that this is the 100th episode. Yeah. Because time is flying by. It's like, man, oh man.
Yeah. I have found, finding the time to sit down with both of our schedules meshing, it's not a pain. It's fun. I enjoy doing the podcast. I enjoy hanging out with you and entertaining all the Wood Hounds out there listening to us. And I like listening to old episodes too. I've really enjoyed this. It's just been one of the most pleasant surprises for me in what we're doing here.
Do you remember the first episode? Could we go back and take a listen to just a little bit of it?
Do we have that technology?
I think we could. Yeah, let's.
Okay.
I think let's go back to the very first episode.
Okay.
And just listen and maybe see, like, I don't know how dorky we sounded.
All right, well, let's just play a short portion of it here, Dan. Okay.
All right.
Here we go. Welcome to the podcast, everyone. We are the Wood Hounds. My name is Joe. You might recognize me from Ohio Woodburner on YouTube. And sitting across from me here at the Wood Hounds studio is my good friend Dan from Back 40 Firewood. Say hello, Dan.
Hello, everyone. And if you want, you can just call me Shifty, because a lot of people know me by that.
Yes, we all have nicknames, but for me, my name is Joe.
Yes. But thanks for getting me together here with this little whatever it is. What is it really that you have me on the line here for?
Yeah. Well, it is the $20,000 question, I guess. When we've been dropping some hints on our YouTube channels that there was something going on, there's been some sparring back and forth. You were crushing Dr. Pepper cans, and I'm making I'm renaming areas of my wood yard after you and claiming that I was taking your computer domain. And but this whole time we have been conspiring to take our status in YouTube to different areas, and we were both interested in podcasting, and we thought, what the heck, well, let's give it a shot. I thought that was pretty good. What I like about it, Dan, the same intro music. I love that song. I love it.
The hokey music, you like that stuff?
It just gets me going. I feel like I'm ready to go take on the world when I hear that
yeah.
song.
Uh-huh. I have to just say though, we have come a long way. I mean, it's fun to go back and listen, but
yeah, we did that not knowing what we were getting into, and not knowing if this was going to go anywhere, or if we were going to bring shame upon our families.
Yeah.
Or if it would just be invisible to the world because no one would ever hear it. And that's hardly the case. Yeah. That's really cool to listen to that. Do you ever go back and listen to old episodes?
Not too often. And it's the same way, like with, any of my like YouTube, social media stuff. Once I have it out there, I just move on. I don't ever really go back and visit them again. But I know there are a lot of people that actually recently we've seen comments, we've gotten emails about people just discovering the podcast now, and they are going back and starting from the beginning.
Right.
So, it'll be interesting maybe to get some feedback from people out there, how they feel we've progressed.
Yeah. When they get released from their insane asylum, they'll give us some feedback. Do you? I'm thinking back upon our 100 episodes, our 99 episodes before this one. Do you have a favorite episode, or is there any of them out there that you felt was just exceptional, or you just really enjoyed more than the others?
Well, I don't know if this is because it's fresh in my mind, but one of the most enjoyable for me was just last week with Richard from the Woodbourne Boys, Firewood.
Yeah,
that was really interesting to talk to him and just hear that whole perspective of what he's doing in Brooklyn.
I might have to agree with you, and it's not to say that I think the others stink.
Right.
But yeah, that was neat. It was neat just to talk to a professional and see how they do it. But the environment that he does it in. Because from where I live, he might as well be on the moon. It's just a different world that he lives in that I do.
Well, and then the other one though, right up there, the White Pine episode, that was very fascinating, very enjoyable.
With Professor John Pastor.
Yes.
Yeah. I think when I think back upon it, I think maybe the interview episodes are my favorite. Not just Professor Pastor, but the Richard Hebby from the Woodbourne Boys Firewood. But I think of all of the interviews that we had. Our very first one was with Austin Roberts from the Log Ox. And then we interviewed Kelly Miller, who is the inventor and the owner of the chain locker. Who are we leaving out? We had a recent interview with Bob Nelson of the Wolf Ridge Log Splitter Company. And we interviewed Harry Watt, he had just announced his retirement from the National Firewood Workshop.
That's right.
He worked for NC State University. I like the interviews. They're fun. It's just neat. It's a neat variety to get people on and just to hear, what the world means to them when it comes to firewood.
And I think one thing that people may or may not understand is it is actually difficult with just timing and scheduling and being able to coordinate having more guests on. It is something that I know we've talked about doing more and more of, but it's not as easy as just, hey, you want to be on the podcast? Here's, let's do it. Okay. Next week. Okay. It's difficult.
And that kind of leads into, I think, my biggest disappointment with the podcast is I ask around, I try to look for interesting people to bring on. And I have one of my heroes that I had cold called. I cold emailed him, and he said, yes, he'll do it. He'll sit down with an interview. And I'm talking about Tom Bodette. He's the voice of the Motel 6. We'll leave the light on for you. And he's a voice actor. He's on Wait, Don't Tell Me, that syndicated show on NPR in the mornings. And he's just a fascinating guy. He's got a fascinating history. And we had a legitimate back and forth, didn't we, Dan, to get him on the show?
Oh, yes.
And we had a day and a time for him to sit. But then life got in the way. I had to go pick up my daughter at school because of a snowstorm that was coming, and it had to have been then. And it, of course, fell right on the date that we had set with Tom. And he said, that's fine. We'll just reschedule. But, then we were getting into the holidays, and he said, let's get back in touch after the holidays. And it's kind of, that flame's kind of flickered out. So that is a big disappointment, because he had started that nonprofit in New Hampshire. It's called Hatch Space, where they're teaching people woodworking skills. And he lived in Alaska, and the stories, he's just one of the great storytellers in the world. And so that's high on my list of disappointments. Oh man. that's just the way it goes, though. You have something finally lined up, like my many dates I had lined up with Jodie Foster, and then I had to go to work or something.
I was just going to bring that up. All the, we had, I think, how many dates lined up, and none of them worked out with Jodie. just couldn't connect the dots.
It's always a scheduling problem. I always wanted to hang out with her on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and she wanted to hang out with me never.
Oh yeah. So there's been some downs. I mean, even we are at the 100th episode, there's been a lot of ups, but there are some downs with with the podcast. And I would say, for me, I don't know if I have a disappointment. I guess it is what it is. I know we've had other things lined up that may or may not still fall through, but each week I think it's fun to just come out, and if we have something to talk about, we talk about it. We sometimes get into controversial topics like wraps versus bundle or bags, bark up, bark down.
Oh my gosh.
But at the end of the day, I think for those listening can pick up on the fact that we always try to have a good time. We always have fun. And if we don't,
so.
We're not probably going to keep doing this.
Yeah. I think an indicator of the health of the Wood Hounds podcast are the traditions or the little things that we do throughout each episode, like the intro music, like cracking jokes. And, the one that has really gotten a hold and has started to spill over into the YouTube universe is the jingle for that secret word of the day.
The code word. Yeah. Yeah. The word of the day.
Yeah. The word, of course, is hobbyist. And whenever you hear that word, we play a jingle. And I like to say it's an inside joke that we have going on here at the Wood Hounds studio. But Dan claims that it's not an inside joke. It is a overt joke.
Well, it is. And there's little things that we do to, we have fun. And sometimes we have fun that we don't let on to others how we're having that fun. But I think people have kind of started picking up on it because you mentioned YouTube, and that was something we only did strictly on the podcast. But then I would start getting comments about like, hey, cue the jingle when you say hobbyist in your video.
Yeah, we cannot escape the reality that we're both YouTube personalities. And that's certainly, I think, what's led to and played a huge role with the Wood Hounds podcast being as successful as it is. And I enjoy YouTube. I enjoy putting up videos. And the one thing, though, that I think we get criticism for, and it's probably legitimate, is we tend to complain or air dirty laundry about certain comments that subscribers leave to our channels that get under our skin. And so we've had a number of episodes where we've talked about that, where we're complaining out loud.
And I will be the first to say to everyone out there listening right here, right now, if you think that was complaining, just wait until our very last episode, because then I'm really going to let it out.
You're not going to hold back. Huh?
No, I have been holding back this far. And let me tell you, when the time comes, there will be a Wood Hounds Tell All episode.
A scorched earth policy. That's what it will be called. So I have gotten to know you a lot better with the podcast, and I always say we don't mail each other Christmas cards or anything, but I've gotten to know you, and we have a lot in common, and we see a lot of the things in life the same way. But the one big difference is you get very combative with certain comments that I just ignore or I just laugh them off. But and I will always, one of my favorite videos that you posted was your rant where you were slinging heavy rounds around with your log ox and you were complaining about a particular comment that didn't get just left on your channel, but it got left on a number of them, including mine. And I laughed at it, and then you posted your rant.
And I don't rant much, but every now and then, I like to keep that edge going, because you do have to at some point address certain things and let it be known.
Yeah. So in the podcast, though, the way people can respond to that is through email, and we've gotten some interesting emails in our first 100 episodes too. The first one that jumps out to me was the young man from Norway who was looking for advice on starting a firewood business.
Yes. Yeah, very interesting. We also had, I believe it's the Wolfman up in Canada, sending us an email about doing some moisture testing on dead standing trees. I mean, it's all kinds of stuff. It's great. I love it.
Yeah. So we get, we probably average maybe 2 or 3 emails an episode, and we do our best to reply to them. And then the ones that were interesting are the ones that could turn into an entire episode. We've made that the entire focus of the podcast that one day.
and yeah, I know we always say, send us an email. We'll bring it up. We'll talk about it, on an episode, but we do kind of filter through some of them and we kind of hold them kind of in a bank. And then, at some point when we get enough topics, we'll throw an episode together about replying to emails, but don't let that discourage you from sending us one, because it is very interesting to hear from the listeners out there. And then if you want to, you can email thewoodhounds@gmail.com. Send it on in. Tell us the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. So what do you think should be some new and exciting directions we could take the podcast on? Do you have anything else out there that you think that would be neat to have? I still would love to get a scientist on here. And I see a future episode on some scientific kind of stuff that has come up with some of the emails that I got. I would like to share with everyone. We'll say that for another episode. I'd like to see some more interviews, authors and all.
Definitely.
Do you have anything on your wish list?
Well, I don't really, how should I say this without sounding, I don't know. I don't really like to plan and try to stick to agendas or
yeah.
I feel like sometimes, I know it may seem to listeners and viewers of our YouTube channels that we talk about the same thing on the podcast as we do in a video or vice versa. But I think that's what kind of is enjoyable to do, is just come and talk about what's going on, not have, a set schedule of agendas, or even within the show, have this segment and that segment. So for me, I love the fact that we can just fly by the seat of our pants week to week.
Yeah. Well, that was our favorite comment we received ever was from our good friend Curtis, who gave us that recipe for podcast success that we just blew up, because we like to do exactly what you just said. We like to have no guardrails, no agenda, just come right out and just start talking about what's on our mind. And a lot of times, not a lot, but sometimes it's what we talked about the week before or something that showed up on a YouTube video. That was just kind of the house that I was raised in too. I heard the exact same stories at the dinner table almost every night, I think it was something about that generation of my parents, as the stories that they would tell, from their childhood and stuff. Yep. I heard that same story 1,000 times, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No. And some people enjoy, some people who listen to a lot of podcasts, they enjoy that and they look for it. They expect it because that's what they've heard or what they're used to. And so I don't know, I like being a little different, and I do the same thing with YouTube, with pretty much everything else in my life. And from back in the days of professional wrestling, it was the same thing. You never knew what you were doing till you got to the arena, and sometimes 10 minutes before you were going to go out, you didn't know what was going to go down.
Yeah. Dan, the time for that segment has now expired. Now we will move on to the species of the day for the next 45 seconds.
Oh.
Gee, thanks. I know exactly what you mean, though, Dan, about not wanting that formatted structure. And I get the same sense too. When we do find an interviewer, an interviewee, it's kind of stressful, because there's a lot of moving parts, and to get them to sit, with the right kind of microphone. And there's pressure too, to have a quality interview. And, it takes a lot of research to read about a person's past and figure out what to say. And it causes stress. And I had always said too, I don't want Ohio Woodburn or my firewood company to be stressful, because if I had to experience stress at work, I would go back working for the man.
Right. Yeah. And I think the other thing is, being that we both have, as you mentioned, YouTube channel and our YouTube personalities, I think if people who listen to the podcast can go to our channels and get a sense of who we are, and then they can come and listen And maybe it is something that's off topic from firewood, because to me, that's what I enjoy when I like watch interviews of, say, a professional quarterback for the NFL. I want to hear about something other than football. Like, I want to get to know that person and, what's going on. So that's where I think the podcast has been great for us to kind of just give another level of ourselves, and show what we're kind of about with various topics.
Yeah. And then that also reflects in the way we end our interviews. And it gets back to the culture, where we play the jingle with that one special word. We end each interview with the Wood Hound, where we wood hound the interviewee, where we pepper him or her with 10 random questions, and we get to listen to what they actually want to tell us.
One of these weeks we should wood hound ourselves.
That's when the podcast has hit rock bottom.
Oh, you mean the 100th episode isn't the last one? This isn't it? We're not done.
Yeah, right. I'm telling you, Dan, this 100 episodes, if that is actually 100, I mean, it breezed past, man. I'm excited for the next 100. What the heck?
Heck yeah. Just keep on going. That's what I say. I'm all about going forward without a plan and just being consistent. It's gotten me this far, so what the heck?
Yeah, we are very consistent at being inconsistent.
Consistent, right.
Yes.
That's the game plan for the Wood Hounds here. And I don't want to make this sound like it's just mass chaos all the time. I mean, obviously there's planning, there's stuff that goes into this. It's not just some hokey pokey podcast roadshow. But
pokey.
Yes, but we do, it's something that there's effort, there's time involved. So I think people out there can appreciate the fact that getting to 100 episodes is a pretty big milestone, all things considered.
Yeah, we wanted the podcast to be, and that was when we were in the planning stages, we wanted it to be just like two people just stacking wood out in the yard. And if you've ever done that, you could stack wood with a stranger. By the time you're done, you're best friends, because you just gab and just talk about stuff, and you normally find something that you both have an interest in. And that's what we wanted this podcast to be. We didn't want it to be heavy or deep. I still think two of the things I'm most proud about the podcast is that there's no cussing, there's no politics. We just want to just enjoy our time together.
Heck yeah, Joe, that is exactly right. And that's what I think is, for me anyway, enjoyable. And like you mentioned, it's just stacking wood. If you're stacking wood, you're not going to be talking about stacking wood. You're just going to see where the conversation takes you.
Yeah.
And that's what I enjoy. Hopefully those who are listening enjoy it as well, which I'm guessing they kind of do, looking at the numbers and the analytics.
Right.
So, hey, here we are, 100 episodes.
Yeah, 100 episodes. And Dan, I just want to thank you for doing this with me. And you are the heavy lifter too with this, because you're the computer nerd. You're the one that's big on the editing and getting all this set up. And you make it easy on me. I just sit here and talk about mindless things. It's something I excel at.
Well, and thank you. I mean, I couldn't do this without you as well. I mean, this is a team effort, and it's one that, again, I was 100 snuck up on us too. That's the other thing that's crazy.
Yeah, we almost missed it. Because then we had Richard from the Woodbourne Boys set. And that was 99, because we were even going to do like a 99th episode, leading up to the 100th. But just the way everything went with Richard, next thing you know, we're like, oops.
Yeah, we were going to build it up. We had because I remember, I think was back maybe episode 95. Like you had said something about like keeping track. We need to have like a countdown. And then like all of a sudden we're like, oh, hey, guess what? Next week is 100.
we didn't do it because that would have required planning and
Yeah.
organization.
We gave the intern the week off, and it slipped we didn't get the memo.
All right. Well, Dan, I am proud to be 50% of this 100th episode. That's the extent of my math.
I was just going to say, now I'm sitting here crunching numbers in my mind. What was that?
Yeah. Square root.
I'm very happy as well to be 50% of the 100 episodes.
Yeah. So the last thing is we could not and we would not be doing this if not for the many listeners, the supporters of this podcast, both of our YouTube channels. You are not only reliable and passionate supporters, you are just nice people. I've met a lot of you, and even though we don't see each other all the time, whenever I meet you guys, I feel like I've known you my whole life.
Yeah. And I think that's when you look at the name of this podcast, the Wood Hounds, it's not just you and me. It's all the Wood Hounds in the firewood community, people out there who tune in and listen. You may not have, look at Richard. He never runs a chainsaw. He never runs a splitter, but is he a Wood Hound? Heck yeah, he's a Wood Hound. So if you're listening and you have very little to do with firewood, or maybe you just like hearing about firewood, consider yourself a Wood Hound.
That's right. Your membership dues are only $50 a year.
And we only sell 5 years at a time.
That's right. All right. Well, everyone out there, again, thank you so much for supporting the Wood Hounds. And Dan, I'm thinking that for the 100th time, I think it's time we strike up the band.
Yeah, strike it up. Number 100. Here we go.
Love the song. Dan, where did you find this song?
I don't even remember.
I love it.
But I want to thank everyone, like Joe mentioned, for tuning in and making the Wood Hounds the number one firewood podcast in the world.
And you can find us on all of the major streaming services and our own website, thewoodhounds.com.
Oh, yeah. So, 100 episodes in the books, and now on to the next 100. Are you ready, right, Joe?
I am ready, Dan, and I am ready to tell you to stay
safe
and celebrate
100
and be
cool
and have
a great day.